ourselves, we can be that for others to a lesser extent. So the gathering together of a Sangha depends on forces of attraction. And what really attracts people to the Sangha is witnessing obviously loving, harmonious friendships. So what really sort of catches people on introductory courses is the friendships between the team that leads the courses. What really makes people enjoy sitting in Dharna Cafe is seeing the friendships and the harmony between the staff. What people really like about being guests in our men's community is the friendships that we have between us. So by observing our friendships, others can be powerfully attracted to the Dharma. So yesterday Satyajyoti talked about metta in relation to the rite of fascination. So an important aspect of any spiritual friendship is that it's based in metta. So metta is a strong positive emotion. It's a heartfelt, loving interest in others, a love for what is emerging in them, a delight in that, a delight in seeing people grow, a fascination for their unfolding potential, and an admiration of their qualities. And this can be particularly strong when people first come along to the centre. They start opening up, they start changing their lives. That's really, really attractive. But usually we associate strong positive feelings with sexual attraction, with romantic attraction, with falling in love. So if we become aware of feeling really attracted to seeing someone open up and change, there can be a tendency to shrink back. We might feel ethically uneasy or embarrassed or ashamed or even afraid. But actually these positive feelings can really keep us emotionally engaged and motivated in our Dharma lives. They're essential actually. And there can be a really healthy outlet for positive emotion. So I think it's important not to dismiss such feelings in ourselves or brush them off in others too quickly. That can just lead to frustration in ourselves and frustration in others. Actually, strong positive feelings, strong attraction to someone is a sign that two people are really interested in each other, really aware of each other, really taking each other seriously, actually. So we don't need to be afraid of attraction. It's important to acknowledge the feelings of attraction, to bring them into awareness, and to trust in our own ethical practice, to trust ourselves. It is possible to be strongly attracted and to act skillfully. But it can be a difficult and sometimes confusing working ground. Sometimes it can feel like unfamiliar territory. All sorts of things can come up. Deep, unresolved issues from previous relationships, previous friendships might be triggered. Or we might start idealizing people or projecting onto them. We might start expecting more from people than they could possibly give or possibly live up to. Or we might start to emotionally depend on people. And we might experience hurt if our friend acts out of character or doesn't give us what we want. So an example for me is my friendship with Padmavajra. Padmavajra is the person that ordained me and gave me the name Maitrīdāsa. So I first met Padmavajra at Padmaloka, and I met him in two ways. The first way was watching him give talks. And the second way was discovering a shared love of India. And I can only explain my response to Padmavajra as a crush. I didn't fancy him, but it did feel like a crush, the sort of crush that a student might have for a teacher they look up to. And it was like, who is this man? And so my tendency was to shrink back, actually. So my conditioning growing up as a gay young man was that strong feelings of attraction can be dangerous. They can put me in harm's way. So my tendency was, in response to this sort of these crush-like feelings, was to shrink back and to actually doubt the strength of the attraction I felt. Pamavajra is friendly to everyone; he loves everyone. So, but over the years, we did start to develop quite a strong connection. On one occasion, I just said to him that I had a strong connection. I felt a strong connection in relation to him, and he said, "Yeah, I have a strong connection for you back," and that was wonderful, just to know that the connection was two ways. But it hasn't always been straightforward. So I've experienced jealousy when Pamavajra has given attention to other people when he should have been giving it to me. I've over-idealized him at times. I've projected authority onto him. I've had slight tantrums when he's given me advice I didn't want to hear. But yeah, over the years, our love for each other has matured and strengthened. And now I think it's just very easy to be with him. And I think we have a strong, beautiful, skillful friendship, which actually is inspiring for other people to be around. So yeah, with mindfulness and with metta, keeping the precepts in mind, we can handle strong feelings of attraction. We can even encourage them, and most importantly, direct them towards higher ideals. So if we keep going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and if we keep in good communication, then all will be well. So now I'll go on to the white rite of pacification. Hold on. Yes, that's the best I could do. So, pacification in friendship. So it's the whole area of bringing order and harmony during turbulent times. Being with people as the storms of their life arise and die down. Helping people to acknowledge and come to terms with the powerful forces at play under the surface. And spiritual friendship can have a really important role to play in this process. So in any friendship, neither person is fully integrated or fully self-aware. So we all have these different strands to our being which can compete with each other and conflict with each other. And many of us have high ideals for ourselves, which sometimes we just can't live up to. So yeah, it can be difficult to know actually how best to set about integrating ourselves, becoming whole, how to understand what the hell is going on. And it's such a relief to have someone in your life that you can go to in all of those different moods, showing all of your different sides. So I'll talk about my friendship with Amoghavamsa now. So Amoghavamsa and I have lived in the community here together for 12 years. And for 9 out of those 12 years, we shared a room. And inevitably, sharing the same space, Amoghavamsa has seen many different phases of my life. So when I first came along, I was quite fearful, insecure, didn't think that highly of myself. And then there was a period when I was undone by falling in love. There have been periods when I've been a bit giddy and cocky, a bit too sure of myself. There have been periods when I've been crippled by fear and anxiety. And there have been periods when I've been angry and explosive and just needed to have a rant. So he's seen all of that. And through it all, he's been consistently accepting and loving and encouraging whatever I've thrown at him. The message back is, it's all okay. Don't run away from it. I believe in you. And it's just a never-ending flow of gifts, of bath bombs and chocolate and crisps. So this steadiness and consistency is a great gift for people. It's as if however unintegrated the other person is, we treat them as one whole person with great potential. And that has a powerful integrating effect over time. It's as if we can become a thread or a beating heart in someone else's life. We can be someone that allows people to safely bring all sorts of things into awareness. And the main thing is to listen openly and sympathetically, to hear and to bear. We don't need to rush into the rescue, to solve problems, to give advice, to offer explanations. We just need to listen. And sometimes when we're listening, we can feel uneasy about what someone is saying or how they're behaving. It can trigger something in us, and our impulse is to try and control it or damp it down somehow or sort it out. So for me, one is if I'm with people who are expressing angry energies, it triggers in me quite a deep-seated fear of conflict. And I have to really sort of watch out for an impulse to sort of damp down people's anger, which often needs to come out, be expressed because of what it's doing to me. So yeah, just listening and allowing space for energies to come out into the open so that they can be seen, named, and harmonized. So what we're trying to do is help others face all of their turbulence, the aloneness, or the grief, or the rage, or the fear, and not take it away from them. Just let it arise and be there with people. And while you're doing that, it's really important to be consistently encouraging, to give over the message, yeah, you can do it. You can make progress. The Dharma life is for you too. You are capable of much more than you think. These sorts of messages. So always relating to others' potential and not getting too drawn into their turbulence, and always trying to think the best of people. And another thing, it's important to, as far as we can, as best we can, to exemplify our confidence in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, to keep meditating, to keep practicing the precepts, to keep taking part in Sangha. If you do that, your very presence will give confidence, because the real source of confidence and pacification and clarity is the Dharma. And we can keep connecting people to that through who we are. We can keep connecting people to the resources and support of the Sangha. It's such a great joy to see people face turbulent times and come out the other side with more confidence, more faith, more strength, more maturity. But this can take a long time, so we do need to have patience. But it is worth it. It's so satisfying to know that just by your very presence and through your friendship that you've helped people in this process. Okay, so the black rite of destruction. So this one's a bit more difficult. So the case is going to have to go now, I'm afraid. And there are buttons involved. Oh. It's getting cold. So the black rite of destruction. So the image I like here is cutting weeds in order that flowers can grow. So it's not cutting weeds for the sake of it because we don't like weeds. It's cutting weeds in order to let flowers grow. When you really care about someone, when you really have metta for someone, you really care about their well-being, you will be prepared sometimes to say things to help them make progress. Things they might not like to hear, things that might seem critical to them or might even seem judgmental to them. But because that person matters to you, you're prepared to say it. We're all on a path that leads ultimately to the death of self-clinging, the death of a fixed self-identity, the death of selfishness. And because of that, there'll be times when we come up against very deep-rooted obstacles in ourselves. The ego just doesn't want to give up easily. Deep down, part of us just doesn't want to become fully free, fully creative. There's always a strong and natural pull, actually, to want to settle down into old habits and views. It's the pull of reactivity, the pull of the wheel. And so that leads us to seek out what we want and to get our own way, to seek our own advantage. It leads us to withdraw from reality and the implications of spiritual progress. And a really important role of a friend is that they help us not to do this. They help us face up to life creatively. Yeah, and sometimes this does involve confronting people with what they're doing and the consequences of what they're doing. If we really care, we'll be prepared to do that. If someone is acting unskillfully or we think they have a wrong idea about the Dharma, we don't always help them by just letting it go, keeping things nice, safe, and harmonious. So one of the best things we can do is to exemplify ethical awareness in ourselves, talking openly about the shadowy areas of our own life, talking about our own failings, taking responsibility for the consequences of our own actions, and forgiving ourselves when we get it wrong. Often that can be enough. But sometimes we might need to go into things with people. So this is not so much about challenging people's behavior, you did this, or giving lectures, or it's about keeping a conversation open, exploring what's really going on. Where is this coming from? What's at the root of this? So I've got an example of this for myself with Vedanya. So it's a few years ago now, and in our chapter, which is a group of order members, I put myself in the hot seat, which means I just talked about my life and invited responses. And I remember talking about, at that time, I'd sort of lost my enthusiasm for life. So I talked about how I felt that the purpose of each day was to get to the end of it and go back to bed and go to sleep. That, in a way, what was motivating me each day was the thought that at the end of it, I could go to sleep. It was quite shocking, actually. And Vedanya's particular response to this was, he said, Maitrīdāsa, I think you're a bit too good. You need to be a bit naughtier, a bit wilder, a bit more flamboyant, a bit more gay. I'll never forget those words. You need to experiment. And these words, they were like a depth charge over the next few months. I kept coming back to them, and it led to all sorts of things. And I realized that the wrong view that was cut through there was that what was most important was what people thought of me, getting it right, my sort of reputation almost. So Vedanya really helped me very gently by just naming something. So there's a few principles for me with the rite of destruction, because it is quite a tricky area. So one thing for me is that it has to be grounded in metta. So one thing that I do, if I've got a difficult conversation coming up, or a conversation I anticipate being difficult, I'll always try and have a period of metta before the conversation. Not necessarily a full metta bhavana, but I might just sit for 5 minutes, really connect with that person, and satisfy myself that as best I can, I'm going to be coming out of a care for them and a desire for their best interests. So really grounding myself in a wish for their well-being. So that's one thing we can do. I think another principle is small doses, homeopathic doses. So an image I used to use on the centre team was, so it's like you've got a swimming pool, and all the water in that swimming pool is encouragement and appreciation and rejoicing, positivity. And then floating on the surface of the swimming pool is a little rubber duck. And that little rubber duck represents critical feedback. And that's the sort of proportions that I think we need to have. It's important not to become habitually critical, habitually confrontational, or habitually sort of expressing our irritability and negativity. So an example of this for me is Satyajyoti. Satyajyoti, you might not appreciate being pointed out as an example of the rubber duck of destruction. But when I was the chair of the centre, Satyajyoti was my deputy chair. And most of the time, really supportive, really encouraging, really appreciative, always went out of her way to tell me when she thought that I'd done something well. But occasionally she was prepared to point out to me that something I'd said or something I'd done, maybe in a meeting, had had undesired effects on team members. That must have been really difficult for Satyajyoti, but she was prepared to do it for me and also for the situation. And I really appreciate that. It's such a boon to have someone like that around who you trust, who you completely know has everyone's best interests at heart, but is prepared to face the discomfort of saying things which are difficult to hear. So with the rite of destruction, we have to be very skillful, actually. The most important thing is to be careful not to destroy people's confidence. That's the one thing we should never be destroying, is people's confidence. That's the worst thing we can do. So actually, done skillfully, sensitively and patiently, then this rite has the opposite effect. It actually increases people's confidence because it helps people cut through difficulties. And finally, with this one, an attitude of humility is really important. So just a sort of questioning attitude. Do I really know what's best for this other person? Maybe I've got it wrong. I don't know myself fully either, so it's quite possible that I've got this wrong. So holding what you think lightly, expressing it clearly from a place of metta, but also holding it lightly. So they're my tips on the black rite of destruction. So it's getting increasingly cold in here, so I'm going to start to wrap up with the yellow rite of prospering. Can you guess what's going to happen now? So yes, yellow costume courtesy of Maitrīdāsa. So the rite of prospering, really it's the culmination of all the other rites. The most important thing in friendship is that we help each other to grow, to prosper, to mature and to deepen in our practice. But we can't make that happen for others. We can't make people change. We can only support and encourage people. We can become part of the conditions for their growth. It's a real privilege to be a part of the conditions for other people's growth. And for that to happen, the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha need to be alive in us, need to be shining through us. So the more we soak ourselves in the Dharma and the Sangha, and the more we share our Dharma-soaked selves and our Sangha-soaked selves, the more positive effect we'll have on those around us. So being in contact with such a person will automatically have an uplifting, prospering effect. We'll feel more in contact with deeper riches and higher perspectives in ourselves. We'll feel more confident and more capable. we'll feel ourselves to be expanding, stretching, changing. So my final personal example is Bodhinaga. So Bodhinaga's quite often talked about our friendship in his talks. We've known each other and practiced together for 16 years. And I'd sort of describe ourselves as sparring partners. So we spent a lot of time together, same Mitra group, going for refuge group. We were on the center team together. We were in the evolution shop team together. We went to Spain to get ordained together. So we spent a lot of time together and really, really got to know each other. And at times, as Bodhinaga has often said, there's been competitiveness, there's been envy, but mainly there's been support and encouragement. And I think we've really helped each other to prosper in the Dharma life. That's the effect we've had on each other. And just really value Bodhinaga. So when we're with our good friend, our good spiritual friend, we'll feel more in touch with what life is really about, what life is really for. We can really reinforce that in each other, spark each other off, really affect each other deeply, bring each other alive. And for me, that's the highest possible form of tantric magic, bringing each other alive. So you might have noticed that I have been removing layers. Even the case I had to go, maybe especially the case I had to go. Because, the medium is the message. So that is what spiritual friendship is helping us to do. Removing layers of pretense, of conditioning, of views and opinions, so that ultimately we become spiritually naked with each other, fully seen by each other, free to be yourself as you are. What a relief to have the freedom to be yourself as you are, and free to become more than that, and free to dance naked in the sky together. And I think I'll leave that to your imagination.